The first time my sister told me to move out of my apartment, she was standing in my kitchen eating strawberries from my refrigerator. She did not ask. She did not suggest. She said, "You have 30 days." I thought she was joking. She was 8 months pregnant, barefoot, and wearing one of those soft beige dresses that made every picture look calm, even when the person inside it was starting a war. My mother sat at the table beside her. My father stood near the window. My sister's husband, Kyle, leaned against the counter with his arms crossed. They had all come together. That should have told me this was not a visit. It was an intervention. I placed the grocery bag I was holding on the floor. 30 days for what? My sister, Melissa, popped another strawberry into her mouth. To move. Move where? She gave me the kind of patient smile people use when they believe the answer is obvious. Anywhere. We need this apartment. I looked around the room. The apartment had 2 bedrooms, high ceilings, old brick walls, and tall windows facing a small park. It was on the top floor of a restored 4-story building in the center of town. I had lived there for 6 years. The second bedroom was my office. The small balcony held the herb garden my grandmother helped me plant before she died. Every shelf, lamp, and scratch in the floor belonged to a chapter of my adult life. Melissa spoke as if she were asking me to move a chair. "You need my apartment?" I asked. "Yes. For the baby." I looked at her stomach. "The baby already has a house." Kyle sighed. "Our place is too small." They lived in a 3-bedroom suburban house with a yard, a garage, and a nursery. My mother had spent 2 months decorating. I knew because I paid the contractor who fixed the nursery window after Kyle tried to do it himself. "Your house has 3 bedrooms," I said. "One is Kyle's office, one is the nursery, and one is ours. That is how 3-bedroom houses work." Melissa's smile disappeared. "You do not understand because you do not have children." There it was. The sentence used by every person who wanted to turn parenthood into authority. I was 33. Single. No children. Inside my family, that made my time flexible, my money available, and my home temporary. Mom placed one hand on the table. "Rachel, listen before you become defensive." I looked at her. "I came home with groceries and found 4 people planning my eviction." "No one is evicting you," Dad said. "Then why do I have 30 days? Melissa rolled her eyes. "Because the baby is coming." That still does not answer the question. Kyle finally spoke. "The location makes sense. Melissa's doctor is 5 minutes away. Her mother is 10 minutes away. The building has an elevator. There is a park across the street. It is safer." "Our house is safe. The stairs are difficult for her." "You have 1 flight." Melissa leaned forward. "You are making this harder than it needs to be. I am asking why you believe my home belongs to you." Mom exhaled. "Because this was always supposed to be a family apartment." The room became still. I looked at her. "What does that mean?" She glanced at Dad. He looked away. Melissa answered, "Grandma bought into the building years ago." "No, she did not." "Yes, she did. She invested in the renovation." "Exactly. That does not make my apartment family property." "It makes it part of the family." I almost laughed. They had built an argument out of half a sentence. My grandmother, Evelyn Brooks, had helped me when I was 26. The building was nearly abandoned then. The roof leaked. 2 units had fire damage. The owner wanted to sell quickly because the city had issued repair orders. I had just left a real estate development firm where I spent 5 years watching rich men buy distressed properties, renovate them, and call themselves visionaries. Grandma believed I could do the same. She invested part of her savings. I invested everything I had. Then I found 2 private investors, negotiated a loan, formed a company, and bought the building. Not the apartment. The building. All 12 units. The storefronts on the ground floor. The parking lot. The deed. My family did not know. Not because I had hidden it completely. Because they never listened long enough to understand. They believed I worked in property management. That part was true. I managed properties. Mostly mine. When I moved into the top floor apartment, Mom called it lucky. Melissa asked whether the landlord gave me a discount. Dad said renting forever was irresponsible. I tried once to explain that I owned a share through a company. Melissa interrupted because she had just been promoted. The conversation never returned. Grandma understood. She held 15% until she died. Her share passed to me through her trust. At the time of this kitchen invasion, I owned 87% of the building. The remaining 13 belonged to two silent investors who had no interest in family drama. But my family thought Grandma had helped me rent a nice apartment. That misunderstanding had survived because it benefited them. It made me smaller. It made Melissa feel ahead, and it let my parents believe they still understood both daughters. I looked at Mom. What exactly did Grandma tell you? That she helped secure this place for you. She helped secure the building. Melissa laughed. There you go again. You always make things sound bigger. I stared at her. Bigger than what? She invested in the building company. We know. How much do you think she owned? Mom frowned. That is private. It is also relevant. Dad stepped forward. Rachel, the point is that your grandmother wanted family to benefit. She wanted me to build something. She wanted all of us secure. Did she say Melissa could take my apartment? No one answered. Melissa placed the strawberry container down. We are not taking it. We are asking you to let us use it for a few years. You said 30 days. Because we need time to prepare. Prepare for what? Living in my home? Temporarily. Kyle looked around the kitchen. 3 years, maybe 4. I stared at him. He said it without embarrassment. 4 years. My sister wanted me to leave the home I owned so she could use it until her child started school. Are you planning to pay rent? I asked. The silence told me the answer. Melissa looked offended. Family does not charge family market rent. What rent were you planning? Mom spoke gently. They would cover utilities and the building fee. There is no building fee. Maintenance then. How much? Dad shook his head. This is exactly why we did not want to discuss numbers first. I laughed. You are asking for 4 years of housing. You can afford another place, Melissa said. How do you know? You work constantly. You travel. You have savings. My finances are not yours. You have no dependents. I am not a public housing program for relatives with children. Mom stood. That is enough. No, it is not. I turned toward Melissa. What happens to your house? We rent it. So you earn income from your house while living in mine for almost free. It helps with baby expenses. And what helps with my expenses? She gave me a look of genuine confusion. You only have yourself. That sentence changed the room. Not because it was new, because she said the quiet part aloud. Only yourself. As if I required less protection because no one else depended on me. As if my life cost less because it was not organized around a husband and child. I looked at each of them. Mom looked uncomfortable. Dad looked tired. Kyle looked impatient. Melissa looked certain. They had not come to ask. They had come to manage my reaction. I picked up my groceries. No. Melissa blinked. What? No. You have not even considered it. I considered it while you were eating my food. Rachel. No. Mom stepped toward me. Think about the baby. The baby will be born into a 3-bedroom house. The house is far from us. It is 25 minutes. That matters after delivery. Then you can stay with them. Mom's face changed. I do not have space. You have 4 bedrooms. Your father needs an office. I looked at Dad. He said nothing. Melissa crossed her arms over her stomach. So you expect me to struggle because you like your view? I expect you to live in the house you chose. You are selfish. Kyle nodded. Very. I set the groceries on the counter. Then leave my selfish apartment. Mom gasped. Dad said my name sharply. But I walked to the front door and opened it. No one moved at first. They were not used to boundaries that required physical action. Melissa picked up her purse. You will regret this. Probably not. You think because Grandma liked you more, you can take everything. I did not take your house. She helped you. She invested in me. Same thing. No. Melissa stopped at the door. When this baby comes, do not expect to be part of our lives. The threat landed exactly where she intended. I loved my future nephew already. I had bought books for him. A small wooden toy train. A blanket in soft green because Melissa hated blue. She knew access to him was the strongest weapon she had. For 1 second, I almost gave in. Then I remembered Grandma's voice. A gift demanded by threat is not family. It is ransom. I hope the baby is healthy, I said. My answer is still no. Melissa left. Kyle followed. Dad walked out without looking at me. Mom stayed near the doorway. You always have to win. I am trying to remain in my home. You know what I mean. No, I do not. She lowered her voice. Melissa needs to feel supported. And I do not? You are strong. There it was again. The family permission slip. You are strong, meaning we can place more weight on you, meaning your pain is less urgent, meaning the person who screams first gets protected. I looked at my mother. Strong people still need somewhere to live. She left. I closed the door. Then I locked it. At the time, I believed the argument was over. It was not. 3 days later, I found an eviction notice taped to my front door. It looked official. It used the building logo. It listed 30 days. And it was signed by the property manager. My name. That was when I realized my sister was not only demanding my apartment. Someone in my family was trying to use my own company to remove me from it. The notice was wrong in ways only someone close to the building would notice. The logo was 2 versions old. The management phone number belonged to an answering service we stopped using the previous year. The legal paragraph referred to a month-to-month tenant, but I had never signed a lease, because owners do not lease apartments from themselves unless there is a tax reason. And the signature at the bottom was a copy of mine, not handwritten, copied from a maintenance approval letter I had signed 6 months earlier. Whoever made the notice had access to one of my business documents. I photographed every page before touching it. Then I called the building's operations manager, Ben Carter. Ben had managed construction during the renovation and stayed afterward. He was 58, allergic to drama, and capable of identifying a leaking pipe by smell. He answered on the first ring. Please tell me the elevator is not stuck again. It is not. Good morning, then. Did you issue an eviction notice for apartment 12? Silence. Your apartment? Yes. No. Did anyone ask you to? No. Did anyone request tenant forms or old letterhead? Another pause. Your mother called last week. My stomach tightened. What did she ask? She said she needed a copy of the family occupancy policy. We do not have a family occupancy policy. That is what I told her. What else? She asked whether owners can move relatives into units. And? I said ownership does not remove leases or board approval. Did she ask about my unit? She said you were considering transferring it to your sister. I closed my eyes. I am not. I assumed that. Why? Because you usually tell me when we transfer a unit. Despite everything, I smiled. Did you send her anything? No, but she visited the office Tuesday. Who was there? Carmen. Carmen was our part-time office assistant and a college student. She knew my mother by sight because Mom had attended one building holiday event. What happened? Let me call Carmen. No, ask her to preserve the security video and computer access logs. Do not mention why yet. Ben became completely serious. Is this a legal issue? It may become one. I'll handle it. I called my attorney next. Her name was Nina Park. She had helped create the company structure when we bought the building. She also knew my family because Grandma insisted on bringing lemon cookies to every closing. I sent Nina the notice. She replied 3 minutes later, do not respond to your family until we confirm the source. Then a second message, and change your locks. I had electronic access, but Mom still possessed an emergency key from years earlier. She claimed she kept it in a drawer and never used it. The kitchen visit proved someone had entered before I arrived. I had assumed I forgot to lock the door. I no longer assumed that. A locksmith came that afternoon. Ben reviewed the building cameras. At 4:30, he called. Your mother entered the office Tuesday at 11:14. Was Carmen there? She stepped out to show a contractor the storage room. How long was Mom alone? 6 minutes. Did she use the computer? Yes. Could she access documents? Carmen was logged into the general drive. I felt angry at Carmen, then stopped myself. The office drive required staff access. An assistant leaving a known relative alone for 6 minutes was careless, not malicious. What did Mom open? We are checking. At 5, the answer arrived. A maintenance approval letter with my signature, an old notice template, a unit information sheet for apartment 12. Then the printer log showed 7 pages. Mom had created the fake eviction notice in the office of the company that owned the building. She had used my copied signature. I called Nina. We send a preservation letter to your mother, she said. That sounds aggressive. She fabricated a housing notice. She is my mother. She is also the person who entered your office and copied your signature. I sat beside the balcony door. The herb plants moved gently in the wind. What would a preservation letter do? Tell her not to destroy electronic files, printed documents, or communications connected to the notice. It does not sue her. It prevents her from later saying nothing existed. She will say I am threatening her. She may say that if you change your streaming password. Nina had a point. Send it. Mom called 20 minutes after receiving the email. Her first sentence was not a denial. You hired a lawyer against me? You created a fake eviction notice. It was not fake. It was not issued by the company. It came from the company office. Because you entered without permission. I have been in that office before. During an event, with me, you are changing the subject. No, you copied my signature. I used a signature that already existed. I did not sign your name. For a moment, I had no words. She had already built a technical defense. You placed it on a document I did not approve. I wanted you to understand that the apartment situation is not permanent. It is permanent if I want it to be. Grandma would not agree. Grandma knew I owned the building. Silence. Then Mom laughed. You do not own the building. Yes, I do. You own part of a company. The company owns the building. Exactly. That is not the same. It is legally the same structure used by almost every commercial property. You always twist things with legal words. I am explaining ownership. Your grandmother paid for that place. She invested 15%. Mom went quiet. That was the first time I realized she did not know the amount. How much? She asked. 15%. That cannot be right. It is. She used almost all of her savings. No, she invested $225,000. Mom inhaled sharply. To my parents, that was a huge amount. To the building purchase, it had been one part of the equity. How much did the building cost? Why does that matter? Answer me? $3.8 million before renovation. Silence. The renovation added another $1.4 million over 2 years. The building was now worth more than $9 million. Mom believed Grandma's contribution had purchased my apartment. In reality, it had purchased a minority share that later grew in value. When Grandma died, her share passed to me, not to the family. I do not believe you, Mom said. That does not change the deed. You are hiding behind paperwork to deny your sister housing. I am using ownership to remain in my own home. She is pregnant. Yes. You have no idea what that means. You were pregnant twice. Did someone else leave their home? Your father and I sacrificed. So did Grandma. For a business she chose to support. She would want Melissa included. She left instructions. That stopped her. What instructions? Her trust. What does it say? I am not discussing Grandma's trust after you copied my signature. Her voice became cold. You are choosing a building over your family. No, you are using family to take a building. I ended the call. Within an hour, the family campaign began. Aunt Denise texted that babies need stability. Uncle Grant said empty nest adults should help young families. My cousin Amanda asked whether I could at least rent Melissa another unit. Dad left a voicemail. Your mother made a mistake. Do not turn it into something permanent. Melissa posted a vague message online. Pregnancy shows you who truly supports your growing family and who values property more than people. The comments filled with hearts. No one knew the property was my home. No one knew she already owned a home. No one knew she planned to rent hers for profit. The public story was simple. Pregnant sister needs safe housing. Single sister refuses. Complicated facts are weak against simple emotion. So I did not argue online. I worked. I reviewed building records with Ben and Nina. I checked access to every unit file. I changed staff passwords. I added a written visitor policy to the office. I met with Carmen. She cried before I finished speaking. I am so sorry. You made a mistake. I should not have left her alone. No. Am I fired? No. She looked surprised. Why? Because you told the truth immediately, preserved the records, and did not try to protect yourself by lying. I thought of my mother as I said it. Carmen nodded. It will not happen again. I believe you. The next morning, Ben called. There is more. My stomach tightened. What? Someone submitted a move-in reservation for apartment 12. The building required residents to reserve the service elevator for large deliveries. The request listed the move date as 3 weeks away. Resident name, Melissa Grant. Authorized by Rachel Brooks. My copied signature appeared again. Attached was a document titled Family Occupancy Transfer. We had no such form, but this one looked better than the eviction notice. It used the current logo, the correct office number, the current building rules. Someone had improved the forgery. Where did it come from? I asked. Email. From whom? Ben gave me the address. Kyle's work email. My sister's husband had submitted the form using his company account. That was not careless. That was evidence. I forwarded everything to Nina. She called immediately. This moves beyond your mother. I know. Do you want me to contact Kyle directly? Not yet. Rachel, I need to know what they think they have. What do you mean? They believe Grandma's investment gives them a claim. Someone may have shown them a document. Nina was quiet. Your grandmother's trust records are secure. What about old company papers? Originals are secure. Copies may exist. Could they have found the preliminary investor agreement? The preliminary agreement had been drafted before the purchase. It listed Grandma as family investment sponsor and described a possible future occupancy benefit. That benefit was removed before closing because the lender rejected it. The final operating agreement contained no family housing right, but a person reading only the early draft might believe Grandma controlled one residential unit. Nina understood. Where were the old drafts? Grandma had copies. Who cleared her house? Mom and Melissa. There it was. The argument had not begun in my kitchen. It had begun in Grandma's files. They had found an old draft, ignored the word draft, and decided it gave them rights. Or worse, they knew it was old and hoped I would not challenge them. I called Dad. He answered quietly. Rachel, have you seen a document about Grandma's investment in the building? Silence. Dad, your mother found an agreement. Is it signed? It has names. That is not what I asked. It says your grandmother supported the purchase in exchange for family use. Read the top right corner. What? The top right corner of every page. I heard paper moving. Then silence. What does it say? Draft. Read the date. He did. Now I want you to understand something. The final agreement was signed 6 weeks later. The family occupancy clause was removed. Grandma received shares instead. Dad exhaled. Your mother believes it was removed unfairly. Grandma signed the final documents with her own lawyer. She may not have understood. I became angry. Do not do that. What? Do not turn Grandma into a confused old woman because her decision does not help Melissa. I am not. Yes, you are. He lowered his voice. Your sister is scared. Then she should talk to her doctor, husband, or therapist. She should not forge housing documents. Kyle says the transfer form was only to reserve the elevator. He signed my name. He thought your mother had permission. Did Mom say she had permission? Dad said nothing. Did she? She said you would come around. That is not permission. No. The word was quiet. I sat down. Dad, they filed an eviction notice and move-in request. I did not know about the eviction. But you knew they planned to take the apartment. I knew they were preparing to move into my home without my agreement. He sounded exhausted. I thought once you saw how much it meant to Melissa, you would reconsider. Why does what it means to me never carry the same weight? That is not fair. It is exactly fair. He did not answer. I continued. Tell Mom and Melissa not to enter the building, contact staff, submit forms, or schedule movers. Nina will send written notice. You are banning your pregnant sister from the building? I am banning people who forge documents from interfering with a property. You hear how cold that sounds? Yes. Does it bother you? Yes. That surprised him. I continued, but being uncomfortable does not make the boundary wrong. He ended the call without saying goodbye. That evening, Melissa sent me a picture. It showed the nursery in her current house. The crib, the painted wall, the rocking chair. Under the picture, she wrote, "I hope you enjoy knowing your nephew could have had a better life." I stared at the beautiful room. Then I replied, "He already has a home. What he needs is adults who do not use him as leverage." She blocked me. 2 days later, Kyle's company called my office. Not the building office, my development company. A woman from compliance asked whether I had authorized Kyle to use his work email and company notary for a residential transfer. I had not known a notary was involved. "What company notary?" I asked. The woman became cautious. "I think we should speak with counsel present." The forged transfer form had been notarized, and the notary was Kyle's assistant. What began as family pressure was turning into a professional fraud problem. My sister believed the apartment belonged to her. Her husband had begun creating the documents needed to make that belief look official. They still had no idea whose name appeared on the building deed, but they were about to learn. Kyle worked as regional sales director for a commercial insurance company. He was not a lawyer. He was not a property manager, but he handled contracts, signatures, and corporate clients every day. He knew the difference between a draft and a final agreement. He knew what notarization meant. He also knew that using his employer's resources made a document look more credible. That changed how I saw him. Until then, I had thought Melissa was driving the situation and Kyle was supporting his pregnant wife without asking enough questions. Now I understood he was not standing behind her. He was building the road. Nina joined the call with Kyle's company the next morning. Their compliance director, Helen Ward, explained what they had found. Kyle emailed the transfer form to his executive assistant, Jenna Price. He told Jenna the form had been approved by the property owner, but needed a notary stamp before a medical move. He attached a scan of my driver's license. Jenna notarized the document without seeing me sign. That violated company policy and state notary rules. Then Kyle submitted the form to my building office. "Where did he get my license?" I asked. Helen hesitated. He told Jenna it came from a family file. I knew the answer. Mom kept copies of old family identification documents in a metal box. Passports, birth certificates, insurance cards. When I renewed my driver's license 3 years earlier, she asked for a copy because she claimed Dad was updating emergency records. I sent it. Another piece of access given in trust. Another tool used later. Helen continued. "Mr. Grant is on administrative leave during our review." I closed my eyes. The consequences had begun. I had not contacted his employer. His own use of company systems had brought them in. "What happens to Jenna?" I asked. "She has been suspended from notary duties. We are determining whether she understood the signature was not witnessed. She did not contact me." No. Then she did not witness it. Helen did not argue. After the call, Nina looked at me through the video screen. "You need to prepare for your family to blame you for his job." "I know. They will say you could fix it." "I cannot. You could refuse to cooperate." "That would not remove their internal records." "No." I looked at the fake form on my screen. Would it protect him? It might reduce evidence available to the notary investigation. It would also leave the housing document unchallenged. So no. Correct. I hated how simple the answer looked on paper. Do not cooperate with fraud. Simple. But family turns simple choices into emotional traps. By lunchtime, Mom called. I did not answer. Dad called. I did not answer. Aunt Denise called. I answered because she had not contacted me since the first message. "Rachel, Kyle may lose his job." "I know. Melissa is due in 4 weeks." "I know. Can you tell the company it was a misunderstanding?" "No." "What if it was? He submitted a document using my copied signature and license. He thought your mother had authority. He told a notary I approved it. Aunt Denise became quiet. I did not know that. Most people do not. Your mother said you reported him. His company found the form in its own system. So you did not call them? No. Another silence. Then she said, I am sorry I sent that message about helping young families. I sat back. Why? Because I heard one version and reacted. Thank you. Is there anything I can do? The question surprised me. Do not carry messages between us. I can do that. It was a small moment, but it reminded me that not every relative needed to remain inside the family story Mom created. Some people changed when facts changed. Others changed facts to avoid changing themselves. Mom belonged to the second group. That evening, she appeared outside the building with Melissa. The new access policy stopped them in the lobby. Ben called from the front desk. Your mother says there is a medical emergency. Is Melissa in distress? She is standing beside her and yelling. Call emergency services if she says she needs medical care. Mom grabbed the lobby phone from Ben. Rachel, come downstairs. No. Your sister cannot handle stress. Then take her home. Kyle has been suspended. I know. You caused this. I did not create the form. You can tell them you agreed. I did not. You were going to agree eventually. No. Melissa's voice came through the background. Give me the phone. Then she was there. You ruined his career. He used his job to forge a property document. He was trying to help me. Intent does not create my signature. You hate that I am having a baby. I closed my eyes. No. You do. Everything changed when I got pregnant. Everything changed when you demanded my apartment. You have always been jealous. Of what? My life. I looked around my home. The evening sun was moving across the brick wall. My laptop sat open beside redevelopment plans for another property. The herbs on the balcony smelled like rosemary. I did not want her life. I wanted access to my nephew without paying for it with my home. That is not true, I said. You never liked Kyle. I liked him enough before he used my license. She began crying. Mom took the phone. Come downstairs and stop humiliating her. The lobby is not a public stage unless you turn it into one. You are hiding upstairs. I am inside my residence. Your temporary residence. I became completely still. What did you say? Mom breathed heavily. The draft proves Grandma intended one unit for family use. The draft proves an idea was considered and removed. You pressured her. I did not. You were always her favorite. She trusted me with the investment. She excluded the rest of us. No, she invested her own money. Mom lowered her voice. We are challenging the trust. There it was. The next move. You hired a lawyer? We spoke to someone. Who? That is not your concern. It concerns my company. It concerns Grandma's estate. Grandma had been dead for 14 months. Her trust had been administered. Notice had been sent to every required beneficiary. My parents received personal items and cash gifts. Melissa received Grandma's jewelry collection. I received the investment shares. No one challenged it during the legal period. Now, after discovering the building's value, they wanted to reopen the story. Nina had predicted this. She had also told me the challenge was weak. But weak legal claims can still cost time, money, and peace. Send all communication to Nina, I said. You will not even talk to your mother? Not while you are trying to take my property. We are trying to correct Grandma's mistake. I looked toward the framed photograph on my shelf. Grandma and me standing outside the building on the day we closed. The roof still broken. The windows covered. She held a silver key. On the back of the photo she had written, "Do not let anyone call courage selfish because they wanted the reward without the risk." She did not make a mistake, I said. I ended the call. Ben asked whether to call the police. No, ask them to leave. If they refuse, then call. They left, but not before Melissa took a picture in the lobby. That night, she posted it. Kicked out of the building my grandmother bought while I am 9 months pregnant. Some people reveal themselves when money is involved. The building name appeared clearly behind her. Residents began asking questions. A local parenting account shared the post, then a neighborhood page. Within 24 hours, strangers were commenting on the building's business page. Shameful. Greedy landlord. Family should matter. Let the pregnant woman live there. Some residents defended the management. Others worried about protests. Our ground floor bakery received angry calls because people thought it was connected. The conflict had moved from family to business. That was the moment I stopped trying to protect Melissa from public facts. I did not post her medical information. I did not share the forged forms. I did not share the forged forms. I did not insult her. The company issued one statement. Brooks Park Properties is privately owned and was not purchased by the individual named in recent posts. No lawful tenant has been evicted or displaced. Documents falsely representing ownership authorization have been submitted to council and relevant professional parties. We will not discuss private family matters further. The statement changed the conversation. People asked what documents were false. Melissa deleted her post, but screenshots remained. Kyle's company saw it. His leave became a formal investigation. Mom called the statement cruel. Dad called it necessary. That was the first visible crack between them. 2 days later, a letter arrived from their lawyer. It demanded company records, Grandma's investment documents, and the right to inspect the building deed. Nina laughed when she read the final request. They could download the deed from the county website. They have not? Apparently not. The deed did not list Grandma. It did not list Mom. It did not list the family. It listed Brooks Park Holdings, LLC. The company ownership registry listed me as managing member and controlling owner. Grandma's trust transfer showed her 15% passing directly to me. The records were not hidden. My family had simply never looked. They believed stories more than documents. Nina prepared a response containing certified copies of the deed, final operating agreement, trust transfer, and closing statement. Before sending it, she asked, "Do you want a settlement meeting?" For what? To stop the public posts, confirm no ownership claim, withdraw the trust threat, and address the forged documents. Would they agree? They might if they finally understand the risk. I thought about Melissa's due date, Kyle's job, the baby. I did not want the next conversation happening in a courthouse hallway after the child was born. Schedule it. The meeting was set for Friday in the building's ground floor conference room. Mom objected to the location. Nina insisted. "This dispute concerns the property," she wrote. "The meeting will occur at the property." My parents arrived first with their lawyer, a man named Stephen Cole. Melissa and Kyle arrived 10 minutes later. Melissa was pale and moving slowly. For 1 second, I felt guilty for making her come. Then I remembered she had come to the lobby to create a public scene days earlier. She could have joined remotely. She chose to appear. Kyle looked different. No suit, no confident smile. He had not shaved. His company badge was gone from his belt. I sat beside Nina at one end of the table. Ben sat near the door as company witness. On the table were 5 folders. The deed, the final operating agreement, Grandma's trust, the forged notice, the notarized move-in form. Mom looked at the folders. "This is excessive," Nina answered. "2 false property documents make paperwork appropriate." Stephen raised one hand. "We are here to find a family solution." "I am here to protect the property owner," Nina said. Melissa looked at me. "You could say hello." "Hello." She flinched. There was no version of my behavior she could not call cold now. Nina began. She explained the ownership structure in simple language. Brooks Park Holdings purchased the building 7 years earlier. Grandma invested $225,000 for 15% ownership. Rachel held the majority share after contributing initial funds, securing financing, managing renovation, and bringing outside investment. Grandma's shares passed to Rachel through the trust. The current ownership was 87% Rachel, 13% outside investors. Mom interrupted. "Grandma paid for Rachel's apartment." "No," Nina said. "She purchased equity in a company. She intended family occupancy." The preliminary draft included a proposed provision. The final signed agreement did not. Rachel removed it. Nina opened the closing file. The lender removed it because undefined family occupancy rights damaged the building's income security. Evelyn approved the revision through separate counsel. Stephen turned toward Mom. Separate counsel? She had a lawyer, Mom said quietly. Nina slid forward a letter. Grandma's attorney had documented the change. I have reviewed the removal of proposed family occupancy rights. I understand that my investment is financial equity only and does not create a personal right to any apartment. I support Rachel's management authority. Grandma's signature appeared beneath it. Melissa read the page. Her face changed. Mom said Grandma promised us a unit. Mom looked at me. She said family would always have a place. I answered for the first time. She meant emotionally. You do not know that. I was there. The promise had been made during renovation. Grandma stood in the unfinished lobby and said, "If any of us ever falls, we will have a place to stand." She did not mean a free apartment for a couple renting out their own house. She meant support. Mom had turned comfort into title. Nina opened the deed folder. Here is the certified deed. She placed it in the center. Melissa leaned forward. The document listed the legal property description. Then the owner. Brooks Park Holdings, LLC. Below it, the county filing included the managing member certification. Rachel Evelyn Brooks. My full legal name. Grandma's name was my middle name. Melissa stared at it. Then she looked at me. Your name is on the deed? Yes. I thought the company owned it. It does. You are the company? I control it. How much is the building worth? Nina said, that is not relevant. But I answered. The last appraisal was $9.4 million. Kyle looked up sharply. Mom went pale. Dad stared at the deed. The room became silent. For years, they had called my apartment temporary. They had told me to buy a house. They had treated my work as collecting rent and answering repair calls. Now the value sat on the table. Melissa's shock turned quickly into anger. You let us think you were renting. I told you I owned a share. A share is not the building. It is when the share controls the company. You hid this. No, you dismissed it. Mom looked toward Dad. Did you know? No. He sounded ashamed, not because I had deceived him, because he had never asked. Kyle leaned toward the deed. If Rachel owns 87%, she can still authorize family use. Nina looked at him. She can. He looked at me. Then the legal structure is not the real issue. No, I said. Consent is. We made mistakes. You forged 2 documents. My assistant notarized the form. After you told her, I approved it. He looked down. I believed your mother. You attached my license. She provided it. And you used it. Melissa placed one hand on her stomach. You are going to destroy us over an apartment you do not even pay rent for. I felt the old pressure rise. The baby, the job, the family. Then I looked at the deed. At my name. At the building I had spent 7 years saving, repairing, refinancing, and managing. I paid for this apartment every day I took the risk of owning the building, I said. Melissa's eyes filled. You always think your work matters more. No, I think my consent matters equally. Stephen cleared his throat. We should discuss resolution terms. Nina opened the final folder. The terms were simple. Mom, Melissa, and Kyle would acknowledge no ownership or occupancy right. They would withdraw the trust challenge. They would stop contacting staff or residents. They would remove false public claims. They would preserve evidence and cooperate with the notary and company investigations. In return, the building company would not file a civil claim for damages unless further interference occurred. Kyle read the page. You are holding a lawsuit over us. I am choosing not to file one if this stops, I said. Mom stared at me. What about family? This is the opportunity to stop damaging it. Melissa began crying. You do not care where we live. You have a house. We cannot afford it. The room changed. Kyle looked at her. Mom closed her eyes. Dad whispered, Melissa. She had said what none of them intended to reveal. I leaned forward. What do you mean? Kyle answered. We are behind. How far? That is private. You tried to take my apartment because you cannot afford your house. Melissa wiped her face. Kyle's commission dropped. Medical bills increased. The mortgage reset. How much do you owe? Kyle said nothing. Dad spoke quietly. 3 months. Mom looked at him. You knew? Yes. Melissa turned toward him. You promised not to say. He looked exhausted. We cannot keep solving problems with secrets. That sentence sounded new in his mouth. Maybe he had finally heard himself. I looked at Melissa. Was the plan to rent your house? Yes. For how much? Enough to cover the mortgage and some debt. And live here for utilities. She nodded. Why didn't you ask for financial advice? Because you would judge us. I would have looked at the numbers. Exactly. To her, facts felt like judgment because facts limited fantasy. Nina asked whether we wanted a break. No, I said. I looked at my sister. You did not need my apartment. You needed a debt plan. I needed somewhere safe for my baby. You have somewhere safe. You cannot afford it. That is the same thing. No, Mom interrupted. Then help them. I turned toward her. I may, but not by leaving my home. Melissa looked at me. What does help look like? It was the first time she asked instead of demanded. I thought carefully. A review of your finances. Selling the house if necessary. Negotiating the mortgage. A rental within your actual budget. No free apartment. No property transfer. Her face twisted. You want us to lose our house. I want you to stop losing money every month. Kyle looked at the table. Our credit will be damaged. It may already be. He said nothing. I continued. I will pay for an independent financial counselor and a housing attorney. Directly. Not cash to you. Mom frowned. That is humiliating. No, Dad said. Everyone looked at him. He continued. Forging Rachel's name was humiliating. Asking for qualified help is not. Mom stared at him. The crack between them widened. Melissa looked from Dad to me. Then at the deed again. I really thought Grandma bought it. I know. Why didn't you tell me clearly? I tried. When? The night I closed the financing. You announced your engagement. Her eyes moved. She remembered. I continued. At Grandma's birthday, I told everyone we had completed the renovation. You said landlords were parasites. Kyle almost smiled. Melissa did not. At Christmas, Dad told me I should stop wasting rent and buy something. Dad closed his eyes. I looked at them all. I did not hide the building. You filtered out information that did not match the role you gave me. No one answered. The deed remained in the center of the table. A simple public document. The truth had been available for years. They had never seen it because they never believed my name could be there. The meeting did not end with an apology. It ended with Melissa refusing to sign. She pushed the acknowledgement away. I am not signing something that says I have no family right. You do not have a property right, Nina said. That is not what I mean. Then the document should not bother you. Melissa stood too quickly. Her face tightened. One hand moved to the table. Kyle reached for her. Are you okay? I'm fine. She was not. Her breathing changed. For one terrible second, every person in the room forgot the deed, the forgery, the apartment. She was my pregnant sister, pale and frightened. Sit down, I said. Do not tell me what to do. Melissa. She closed her eyes. Then water spread across the floor beneath her dress. No one moved. Melissa looked down. Oh. Kyle panicked immediately. The baby is not due for 26 days. Nina pressed the conference room call button. I walked around the table. Are you having contractions? I do not know. When did the pain start? In the car. How far apart? I did not count. Of course she did not. Mom began crying. Dad reached for his phone. Kyle stood frozen. And the family's responsible daughter stepped into the role everyone expected, but this time I chose it. That difference mattered. I called emergency services, gave the address, and kept Melissa seated. Ben cleared the lobby. Nina gathered the documents so they would not be lost in the chaos. When the ambulance arrived, Kyle rode with Melissa. Mom and Dad followed in their car. I stood in the lobby holding Melissa's purse. Nina touched my shoulder. You do not have to go. Yes, I do. You can care about her without surrendering the agreement. I know. Do you? I looked at the wet mark on the conference room floor. Yes. At the hospital, the doctors slowed the early labor. The baby was healthy. Melissa needed observation overnight. The crisis did not erase the dispute, but it stripped away performance. No social media, no family audience, no speeches about fairness. Just Melissa in a hospital bed, exhausted and afraid. Kyle sat beside her. Mom and Dad went home after midnight. I remained in the waiting area because Kyle had no charger, Mom had taken Melissa's bag by mistake, and someone needed to bring the correct medical records from their house. At 2 in the morning, Kyle found me near the vending machines. You can go home. I know. He sat across from me. For several minutes, neither of us spoke. Then he said, I thought the apartment would fix everything. I looked at him. The mortgage? The mortgage. The cards, the baby costs, Melissa's panic. How much debt? He rubbed his face. 78,000, not including the house. I stared at him. How? Renovations, wedding balance, cars, medical bills, then my income changed. Why 2 new cars? He laughed without humor. Because we thought we were doing well. You were already carrying debt. Yes. Did Melissa know the total? Not until recently. And your solution was to hide it until you could live for free. When you say it clearly, it sounds terrible. Clarity does that. He nodded. I did not think of the transfer as forgery. What did you think it was? Paperwork your mother had permission to arrange. She told you I said yes? She said you always resisted first, then helped later. That is not yes. I know. Did you know the eviction notice was fake? He looked away. Yes. That answer hurt more than I expected. Did you make it? No, your mother did. But you knew. Yes. And still submitted the transfer. Yes. I waited. He did not defend himself. That mattered, but not enough to erase it. What happens at work? I asked. I will probably keep my job, but not the director role. Why? Misuse of company systems, misrepresentation to the notary, failure to disclose personal activity. And Jenna? She may lose her commission. Because she trusted you. He closed his eyes. Yes. The harm had spread. That is what secret shortcuts do. They recruit people into consequences they did not fully understand. Kyle leaned forward. I am sorry. To me? To you. To Jenna. To Melissa. To the residents I treated like background. I studied him. Would you be saying this if the deed had shown Mom's name? He looked at me. I do not know. It was the correct answer. Not flattering. Honest. Then the apology is a beginning, I said. Not proof. He nodded. I will sign the agreement. Melissa has to choose for herself. I know. At 3:20, he returned to her room. I drove home before sunrise. The fake eviction notice was still on my desk. The top floor apartment felt different. Not threatened. Clarified. I had spent years thinking ownership meant security. But property cannot protect you from people who believe love gives them access. Only boundaries can do that. The next afternoon, Melissa called from the hospital. Her voice was quiet. Can you come? I almost asked why. Then I decided I could hear the answer in person. She looked smaller in the hospital bed. No makeup, hair tied back, a monitor wrapped around her stomach. The baby's heartbeat filled the room in steady sounds. Kyle was not there. He is speaking to his company, she said. I sat in the chair beside the window. How do you feel? Embarrassed. That is not a medical condition. She almost smiled. Physically tired. The baby? Fine. We listened to the monitor. Then she said, I read Grandma's letter. What letter? Dad found it with the draft agreement. My body became still. What did it say? Melissa reached toward the bedside drawer and handed me a folded copy. The letter was addressed to Mom. It had been written during the building renovation. Helen, I know you worry that Rachel is taking a risk too large for her. She is. That is why I believe in it. I am not buying her an apartment. I am investing in a business she built. Please do not treat the result as family property if it succeeds. No one offered to carry the risk when the roof was leaking. It would be wrong to demand the reward after the rooms are beautiful. I read it twice. Grandma had predicted the exact argument years before it happened. She knew, Melissa whispered. Yes. Mom never showed us. Of course not. She kept the draft and hid the letter behind it. That sounded like Mom, not destroying evidence, arranging it. What do you want to do? I asked. Melissa looked toward the monitor. I want to sign. Because of the letter? Because the apartment is not mine. I waited. She continued. I knew our house was in trouble. Kyle told me we needed to downsize. I refused. Why? Everyone thought we were doing well. Who is everyone? She laughed sadly. People I do not even like. That answer was honest enough to hurt. I was terrified of bringing a baby home while everything was shrinking, she said. Then Mom found the draft and said Grandma had planned a family apartment. She said you would complain but eventually understand. I did not. I know. She also knew I owned the company. Melissa shook her head. I do not think she understood how much. That should not matter. No. We sat quietly. Then she said, I meant what I said about keeping you away from the baby. My throat tightened. I know. I wanted to scare you. You did. I am sorry. The monitor continued its steady rhythm. I cannot promise how close we will be after this, I said. I know. I cannot pretend the threat did not happen. I know. But I do not want to be kept away from him. She wiped her eyes. I will not do that. Even when you are angry? Yes. Do not promise quickly. She looked at me. I will not use my child to collect things from you. That was more specific. More useful. Thank you. She signed the acknowledgement in the hospital that evening, with Nina present by video. Kyle signed. Mom waited 2 more days. Dad signed first. Then he brought Grandma's original letter to Nina's office and asked that it be added to the family trust records. Mom called me after he did. You turned everyone against me. I did not write Grandma's letter. She always believed you over me. This was not about belief. She made you wealthy. No, she helped me take a risk. You would have nothing without her. That may be true. It still does not make my home Melissa's. Mom began crying. You have no idea what it is like to watch one daughter struggle while the other has a $9 million building. I closed my eyes. There it was. The number had changed everything. Before the deed, I was selfish for keeping an apartment. After the deed, I was selfish for not distributing wealth. What do you believe I owe Melissa? I asked. Security. She has parents, a husband, a career, a house with equity. The house may be sold. Yes. You could prevent that. I could delay the consequences. You sound like a banker. I sound like an owner. The word angered her. You enjoy saying that? No, I need you to hear it. She was silent. Then she said, I will sign if you agree to one thing. No, you do not even know what it is. An acknowledgement of my ownership is not something you can sell back to me. I am your mother. Yes. And that means nothing? It means I wish you had protected my home instead of helping someone take it. She ended the call. Mom signed the next morning without conditions. The public posts came down. A correction appeared on Melissa's page. I recently shared an inaccurate statement about a family property dispute. The building was not purchased by my grandmother, and I had no legal right to the apartment. I regret involving the property, residents, and local businesses in a private conflict. She did not name me. She did not need to. The building's business rating slowly recovered. The bakery owner received an apology from Melissa and a payment for a week of lost promotional orders. Kyle's company completed its investigation. He kept employment but lost the director position and part of his bonus. He received a final warning and had to complete ethics training. Jenna's notary commission was suspended. Kyle paid her legal costs because his instructions had caused the violation. Mom said those consequences were too harsh. Dad said they were the reason forged documents mattered. Their marriage changed after that. For years, Dad had called himself neutral. The conflict forced him to see that neutrality had consistently supported the person applying pressure. He opened a separate bank account. He began attending counseling. He stopped carrying Mom's messages. Mom called that betrayal. Dad called it overdue. Melissa and Kyle sold their house. Not immediately. They met with the housing attorney and financial counselor I paid directly. The numbers were worse than they expected, but better than disaster. The house had enough equity to pay the missed mortgage, clear part of the high interest debt, and cover moving costs. They rented a modest 2-bedroom apartment 12 minutes from my parents. No park view, no private office, no free housing, but the rent fit their budget. Kyle worked partly from the dining table. Melissa complained about storage. Then the baby arrived. His name was Oliver. He was born healthy, loud, and with a full head of dark hair. Melissa called me from the hospital. Not mom, not dad, me. Do you want to meet your nephew? I cried before answering. Yes. I brought no expensive gift. Just the green blanket and wooden train I had bought months earlier. Oliver slept through our introduction. Melissa watched me hold him. You could buy him anything, she said. I could. You brought a train. He cannot use an apartment yet. She laughed, then cried, then laughed again. We did not discuss the deed. That day was not about property. It was about a baby who had been used in arguments before he took his first breath. I promised myself I would never make him carry the debt of what his parents had done. That did not mean pretending it never happened. It meant keeping adult consequences with adults. For the first 6 months, Melissa and I rebuilt slowly. She asked before visiting. I asked before offering help. When she needed someone to watch Oliver during a medical appointment, she called and said, "You can say no." I said yes. When she complained about the small apartment, I listened without offering mine. She survived. When Kyle asked whether I could review their repayment plan, I charged no money but required them to bring every statement. No hidden cards, no missing loans, no invented future income. They did. Their debt began falling. Not dramatically. $300, $500, a tax refund, a sold piece of furniture. Real recovery is boring. That is why people avoid it. It does not photograph well. It does not feel like a miracle. It is simply one honest payment after another. Mom remained distant. She visited Oliver constantly but saw me rarely. At family gatherings, she became quiet when property came up. Then, 9 months after the meeting, she asked to visit my apartment. I almost said no. Then I agreed with one condition. She came alone. She stood in the kitchen where the demand had begun. The same counter, the same view, no strawberries. She looked around slowly. I never understood this was yours. You did after I told you. I mean emotionally. I waited. She touched the back of a chair. I thought Grandma gave you a place. I did not understand that you built a business around it. Why didn't you ask? Because Melissa needed more from me. That is not an answer. Mom looked at me. No, it is the excuse I used for everything. I said nothing. She continued. When you were children, Melissa reacted loudly. You withdrew. I learned to calm her first because you seemed fine. I was not fine. I know. Did you? Not then. She looked toward the balcony. Your grandmother warned me. I saw the letter. She told me I treated your competence like a resource. That sounded exactly like Grandma. I was angry with her, Mom said. I thought she favored you. Did she? Yes. The answer surprised me. Mom continued. She trusted you more because you followed through. I wanted her to trust Melissa the same way without Melissa having to earn it. That would not have helped Melissa. No. She sat at the table. When the house debt became serious, I panicked. I saw the draft and decided it meant what I needed it to mean. You copied my signature. Her face tightened. Yes. You created an eviction notice. Yes. You gave Kyle my license. Yes. No defense. No because. No family explanation. I am sorry, she said. I looked at her. I do not forgive you yet. I know. You cannot have a key. I know. You cannot contact my staff except as a normal visitor. I know. And if you ever use Oliver to pressure me, I will not. Let me finish. She nodded. If you ever use access to him, family events, illness, or guilt to pressure me about property or money, I will leave the conversation immediately. I understand. I believed she understood the words. Trust would require time. Before leaving, Mom walked to the balcony. She touched one of Grandma's herb pots. She would be proud. Yes. The old version of me would have softened the answer, would have said Grandma loved all of us, would have made Mom feel included. That day, I allowed the truth to remain. Grandma was proud of me. I had worked for it. Acknowledging that did not steal anything from my sister. A year after the apartment demand, the building held its annual resident picnic in the park. Melissa came with Oliver. Kyle came carrying folding chairs. Dad brought drinks. Mom brought strawberries. When she placed them on the table, we looked at each other. Then she laughed. I bought my own. It was a small joke, not enough to erase the kitchen. Enough to show she remembered. Oliver took his first steps on the grass across from the building. He moved from Melissa toward me with both arms raised. Everyone cheered. I knelt and caught him. Behind him stood the building they had once tried to take in his name. I looked at my nephew and understood something clearly. Children do need security. But security is not created by teaching them that love allows them to claim what belongs to someone else. It is created by adults telling the truth before the child has to live inside the lie. People heard parts of our story and asked whether I ever offered Melissa a unit in the building. I did not. Not because I wanted revenge. Because every apartment was occupied by a tenant with a real lease, a real life, and a right not to be displaced for my family. When a one-bedroom unit became available later, Melissa considered applying. She asked the market rent, then laughed and said their current place was cheaper. That conversation lasted 2 minutes. No entitlement. No threat. No copied signature. Progress often looks ordinary. I still live in apartment 12. The second bedroom is still my office. Grandma's herbs still grow on the balcony, though I have replaced the rosemary twice. The building has increased in value. We purchased another property across town. This time, when I told the family, Dad asked how the financing worked. Melissa asked how many units it had. Mom said, "Congratulations." No one called it luck. The certified building deed remains in the company safe. A framed copy of the closing photo hangs in my hallway. Grandma and me outside the broken building, holding the silver key. Visitors sometimes ask why I keep a picture of a place before it became beautiful. Because that was the moment it belonged to my future. Not when the walls were painted, not when the appraisal rose, not when my family finally understood the value. Ownership began when I accepted the risk no one else wanted. My sister demanded my apartment for her baby. She never saw whose name was on the building deed because she never thought my name could be there. She thought I was only living in a space someone else had given me. She thought being pregnant turned need into ownership. She thought family pressure could replace consent. She was wrong. But I had been wrong too. I believed strength meant solving every problem quietly. It does not. Strength can mean opening the door and telling people to leave. It can mean calling a lawyer when the person who crossed the line is your mother. It can mean caring about a pregnant sister without giving her your home. It can mean holding a newborn baby and still keeping the agreement in place. Love without boundaries is not always kindness. Sometimes it is permission for the next betrayal. The deed exposed my family's assumptions. The forged notice exposed their methods. The debt exposed their fear. And the consequences forced all of us to learn a new way to be related. I did not win because I owned a $9 million building. I won because I stopped allowing people to treat my life as unused space. I was not the daughter with only herself. I was a person worth protecting, even when the person protecting me had to be me.